everybody, it's Annabelle, your VTuber demon that wants to play for fun, and I hereby invite everyone to join me on my adventures through Marvel Snap. So today's adventure through Marvel Snap, we are looking at the last two patches. Yes, there was a patch that came out today, but you might not know there was a patch that came out Tuesday. We're going to talk about both patches on today's. So the first one we're going to talk about is the new patch that just came out today. And we're going to talk about the card that everybody is talking about, which is Angela. Angela took a big hit today. She got changed from being a 2-0 that gave every card, when a card was played on her, she got +2 to now being a 2-3. And after you play a card on her, she'll get +1. This is kind of a weird point for her. It kind of brings up her floor and lowers her ceiling a little bit. On an average turn, if you were to say that 4 other cards would go into Angela's lane, normally that'd be 8 points of power for her, 2 for each. 2 times 4 is 8. Now that's 4 with the 3 on her, which basically brings her down to 7. So if you were normally putting 4 different cards on her throughout the game, and now you're putting the same 4 cards on her, she basically got a 1-point nerf altogether. The problem is that each time beyond that, she goes a point deeper into that red. And for being such an early game card and being such a staple, it's kind of interesting. This has been one of the cards that's been hard to balance for second dinner. And even after today, it's going to be hard to balance still. Because part of the problem is that she either is too powerful or unusable. You can change that last point from a 3 to a 2 to a 1 to a 0. And that's not as important as the text that comes underneath her. When she has +2 power for each card instead of +1, it makes a big difference. The thing with her currently is just the fact that, like, 2 3s aren't the greatest in the world. And even when you look at 2 stuff here, let's look at the 2 slots real quick. You're basically trying to get it above a 2-5. Now, is that impossible to do? No, that's putting 2 cards on her. Anything above a 2-5 is basically right. That's your silk level. That's your wizard level. So it's not as big of a nerf as it could be, but I think a lot of people are going to shy away from it because it seems like a bigger nerf than it is. You're not going to have 2 20 Angelas, you're not going to have 2 10 Angelas. It's not really going to happen too much anymore. You can still make a 2-10 happen, but in order for a 2-10 to happen, you got to get 7 cards down on this. Instead of before where you had to get 5 cards down on this. So it is a significant but not impossible nerf to overcome. Alright, buff time. Alright, first buff that we have on is the Smoke Monster. The Smoke Monster got changed from a 6-8 to a 6-10. 2 points of buff on him is really starting to get scary. If you look at a lot of the 6 drops, if you actually look through the 6 drops here, getting a 6 above 10 is hard to come by. There's only a few that fall above that 10 mark. You're looking at like Death and Infinite, and sure, those fall above here. But once you hit about Thanos level, that's what, like 3, 6, 9? There's only about 9, maybe 10 cards that fall above this. Yeah, 9, maybe 10 cards if that fall above this. Without doing extra stuff. I mean, you can say like the Red Hulk gets bigger and the Blob gets better. But just for a solid drop, 10 is not bad. And for the fact that it's going to silence any cards that haven't been revealed from your opponent's side, might make this a, if you're ahead, you're winning that lane card again. One of the things that made this fall off of being in a Galactus deck was the fact that it didn't put up a lot of points. Now, if you put this down with a depth, you're talking 22 points. That's going to be hard to beat. And you know you're winning the lane because Galactus has to win the lane. So, it's hard to get above 10. Next up, we have Hercules. Hercules has been probably the worst joke move card that has ever existed. And to be fair, I'm not sure this change has stopped them from being a joke move card anymore. So the change that happened is he went from a 4/7 down to a 3/4. Now, the whole idea is basically on turn 1, you played probably Human Torch. On turn 2, you'd Carnage or Human Torch. On turn 3, you now play down the Hercules. On turn 4, you play down the Phoenix Force. And on turn 5, you move the Phoenix Force into the Hercules. Hercules blobs it back out. It gets 2 moves then. And then you also get it on turn 6. Not impossible to do. That's pretty much an interesting combo. Problem with him is, I'm still not sure how good that is. What move kind of needs is a way for other cards to move no matter what. So, one of the things that I would love Hercules to do, love Hercules to be, is a move generator for other weak cards. Imagine if this was a 3, and the first card you play into this moves to a random location. The first friendly card. That helps out move so much more than what this is doing right now. The problem with this is that you could get that Phoenix Force on 4, and if your opponent plays into Hercules, before you play into Hercules, your Phoenix Force does Jack and Squad. I mean, it still gets the 1 power up, but it doesn't get the 2nd power up. It doesn't act as a protector either too much. I mean, there was a whole idea where you play Hercules onto like a storm lane. So that way if something gets swarmed into, moved into the storm lane, the Hercules will basically just bat it back out. Say, no, you're not going to move it here. There's not enough move cards out there that really move on their own. There's not even one for each and every single number that exists energy-wise. If you look at just the plain old move cards, okay, so let's go to the ones that say move here real quick. Here's the one. The only one that moves on its own is Nightcrawler. On 2s, you have Jeff, and that's it. None of these other cards move on their own. You can possibly say Silk moves on its own, but it's not gaining any power. Even the same thing with Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler moves on its own, but it's not gaining any power. On 3, you have none of these cards that move on their own. You could technically have Nocturne, but Nocturne doesn't gain power. 4, the only card that moves on its own is the Phoenix. On 5, there's basically no cards that move on their own except for Vision. And on 6, you have absolutely no cards that move on their own. Even the cards that do move on their own. The only card that moves on its own, has any ability of gaining power, is the Phoenix Force. That's it. And to have something like Hercules that could actually bat another card around to get that power off of it, help out that move synergy, will be so much better. I honestly don't think Hercules is going to make a big change in 3. I see the deck that he can belong into. I see the deck that he can deal with. It's a move deck, we already knew that, but yeah. Also talking about move. Kingpin got changed. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Kingpin has gone all the way down to being a 1-2. Still with the -2 power. There is a deck that you can sort of do with this, where basically you use the other half of the move cards on this. Again, we'll look at the move cards here real quick. Where you use interesting stuff like you use... Where is it? The Juggernaut to try to get stuff knocked into there. You use the Polaris to try to get stuff knocked into there. You use the Stegout to get stuff into there. You can use the Cannonball, that's on 6 to move stuff in there. Or 5, that's it in there. And then on turn 6, if everything bad goes wrong, you can just do the Magneto. So just if you somehow you can get Kingpin down and Magneto down, somehow cheat out 1 extra energy on turn 6. If you know your opponent has 4 cards that are going to move from the Magneto on its own, that's a huge down shift for those cards. First of all, it's going to mess up their turn by not having the points where they want it to do. Second of all, if you have enough slots where Magneto was basically in an empty lane and is moving over all 4 things, that's 8 negative power on top of all the energy moving. Is that impossible? No. Is that interesting? Kinda. Alright. Next up, we're talking about move some more. Move done a lot of stuff this one. Miles Morales. Miles Morales got a tiny little buff power. He went from a 5 to a 6. Not sure this is going to really bring him into the stratosphere, but Miles Morales has always been one of those cards where, honestly, it's right on the edge of being super powerful. And there's almost a part of me that would like to see them try at some point to make it so that if you move the card, period, he'd go down to 1 permanently. Not just for 1 turn, just for any turn. I think it's enough to really make it happen. I mean, you could technically have this happen on turn 3 then, by playing Nightcrawler 1 and moving it on 2. But I don't think a 3-6 or a 1-6 at that point is impossible. That's basically going through as many hoops as getting the demon is. In fact, it's a little more hoops than getting even the demon. And the hood is not a bad card to throw at your opponent if you're playing any kind of clockwork. Alright, after Miles, we are going to talk about High Evolution. High Evolution got a small little buff. Just the buff on the actual High Evolution itself, on none of the cards. Kind of sad that this is happening. Almost every card in High Evolutionary is at the point where nobody plays it anymore. If you look at some of the big cards in here, let's flip through everybody. Aren't you flipping? Wasp is basically not doing anything. -1 power, who cares? Missing Knight +1 power, eh? Shocker, nobody played Shocker before, nobody's gonna play Shocker now. Cyclops has had his entire power. He used to be the greatest card in High Evolution, and he basically got knocked out. The fact is that nobody cares about you getting infected, and especially losing that energy. Thing nobody cares about. Hulk has gotten eaten by Red Hulk and Alioth. So many people play with Cage. Abomination Man is not well just anymore. Right. Next buff is Nick Fury. Nick Fury got a point added to him. Who cares? Nick Fury doesn't win you games based on how much energy he has or how much energy he doesn't have. This is a decent cost for the 4/6. It's not the end of the world, but the problem is those 3 6 drops are horrible for you. I almost wish he would do 2 random 6 drops and lower them by 1. Taking -1 off their cost would make it more interesting than him getting 3. Getting 2 6 drops that basically got dropped down by 1, so you have 2 quote-unquote 5 drops, so you can play something on 5 and play something on 6. That'd be kind of interesting. I'd almost want to see him do a 5 and 6 on his own also. But I think 2 6s would lose 1 energy, make him way more powerful. Because the problem is that every time a new 6 comes out, if it's a bad 6, it really hurts his pull. And even some of the better 6s don't really help him out a lot. If we're looking at the 6s right now, let's go to the 6s for just a turn here, okay? Some of the cards that would be considered great for other things really don't help with him. If you get even a red Hulk, the chances that your opponent's going to skip 5, skip 6 isn't great. Now you just have basically a 10-point card. Ultron, it's great, but you don't have any of the Patriots set up for it. Living Tribunal is great, but you don't have any of the setup for it. What's the odds that you have something set up for Spectral? What's the odds that you have something set up for Apocalypse? What's the odds that you even have something set up for Null? That's the problem. A lot of the 6-drop cards are finishers for other decks. Right, so those are the nerfs and the buffs that happen in this particular week's patch. Now we're going to go backwards in time to look at some of the stuff that happened on the 25th. So basically on the 25th we had small changes, which is why nobody really talked about it. The first one being is to a lot of different locations. So now in Marvel Snap, a lot of the locations that say the first play card here adds its power to the top of your deck. So like Krakoa, where it says your first play here adds its power to the top of your deck, it'll say the next card played here. So whenever you see the word your first is now been changed to your next, this is just to eliminate some of the confusion that happens in Marvel Snap when somebody would have a card down there, like on a blank location or a blind location, and then it would switch into one of these locations, and you'd be like, well, why didn't that card get power to this? Alright, so that's one of the changes that happened. Another change that happened was the fact that Heimdall had his text changed. So Heimdall's text got changed from unreveal activate the unreveal abilities of your other cards here to now unreveal repeat the unreveal abilities of your other cards here. And now why this is semi-important is just because of the fact that we are getting a new keyword. The new keyword that we are going to be getting is cold activate. That's why Heimdall had to be changed. So, as of this point, we do not know exactly what activate is going to be, but starting in so July will be July will be Deadpool. August will be the Young Avengers. And July, August, September. September will be the beginning of the second Spider-Verse. So when September rolls around, we'll get the new keyword of activate. This is one of the cards that got data mined. I don't like to talk a lot about data mines, but I'm going to talk about the new keyword here just a little bit. But because I'm talking about stuff that is data mined, I'm going to throw up this little disclaimer saying all of what I'm about to talk about is not being confirmed. So we're looking at Symbiote Spider, and Symbiote Spider basically says activate, which will be the new keyword. Merge your lowest card here with a copy. It's text like it just revealed. So, not much. It's basically kind of an unreveal that you have the ability to make it go off when it doesn't need to go off. So, the way it works, and again, I don't know how this works, so I'm just going to use my best logic. So again, none of this has been confirmed. I'm just using my best logical skill points to this. So what's going to happen is, you're going to have the card in your hand. You're going to be able to play the card onto the field. Now, as long as the card has not been revealed, I don't think you'll be able to activate it. I think it has to be showing up on the field for it to work. This will just make it so that places like Dark Dimension and cards like Invisible Woman don't have an issue with it. It just has to be showing on the field. Now, once it's showing on the field, the best idea that we've all come up with as a community is that you'll basically go to the card, like let's look at Maria Hill, and in the game, you'll basically press and hold on the card. And it might even get a kind of like a glowy orb that comes out and pops, and that's when you activate it. And the only reason you have to hold is just to prevent from fat finger syndrome. Now, so at this point, there are only a few cards that have been revealed with this new activate ability. But again, none of this is confirmed. But my hope is that certain cards from the past will get the reveal ability. Some of the cards that I'm looking at for this would be, first of all, Kitty Pryde. When Kitty Pryde originally came out, Kitty Pryde's ability was basically the same as activate, where you could keep it on the board and then pull Kitty back into your hand. And I think that's also how reveal is going to work, where if you pull it back your hand, bounce it back your hand, get it back your hand, you get the ability to use that reveal one more time. Another one that I'm looking forward to, maybe getting this reveal ability, is Elektra. If Elektra's all down on the field, now Elektra kind of works almost as like a Negasonic Teenage Warrior, where for the rest of your game, your opponent might be scared to put a 1-drop in Elektra's lane, knowing that it could die. Mantis, and not only Mantis, any or all of the Guardians of the Galaxies getting an activated ability instead of an on-reveal ability. Guardians have had no luck. Now you could basically have it so that on one turn, if you know you can lock down the lane, all the Guardian effects go off, and that could be huge for the Guardian. Maria Hill. Maria Hill could come down early in the game and call back up when she decides to. Doctor Strange, again, help for the move deck. It's so hurts move when you don't have good cards and you have to play down Doctor Strange because he makes sense on 2, but you don't have down decently good move cards yet. You can put down the move cards after Doctor Strange and then move them over with Doctor Strange. Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is one of those cards that sometimes can bite you on the last turn when you have nothing better to play, or sometimes can bite you if you don't want to play her turn. Now you can just slam her down on 2, and on any turn, you could basically take away the location. This could also be interesting for limbo plays, where it's like, okay, now you know you can't play magic onto her lane because she could change it away from limbo. Morph. Morph is one of those cards that nobody gets to see any of his art because as soon as his art comes on the field, it changes to something else. Having this secret 3 that could come down on 3 and maybe wait till 4 to 5 to 6 when maybe your opponent has better cards in their hand and then change around to really make Morph become a more powerful card. Polaris. The fact that sometimes you play players down on 3 and you have nothing to move because there's no good stuff on there. Being able to pull stuff later on in the game, very interesting. Sabretooth. Now this is an interesting one that I kind of thought about. Imagine if Sabretooth had the activated ability that you could destroy him. And then once you destroyed him, he would lose that activated ability. Imagine how much more interesting that would be, that you could have a card that you would actually be able to destroy itself each and every turn. Or even if it kept the activated ability, put it down on the field, beginning of next turn, destroy it. Comes back to your hand. In that 5, 10, 15 power for your nulls and stuff, kind of interesting. Lockjaw! Oh man, does everybody want old Lockjaw back? But you can't have old Lockjaw back. Well, guess what? If it's now an activated ability, you can have Lockjaw back. You can decide once per game when you want this to go off. That's it. You don't have to worry about what his power is. It only happens once, and then it's done. But now you get to decide, and it doesn't have to be the turn you play Lockjaw. Arrow. Arrow has the same problem as Polaris. You can even bring back old Arrow with this kind of activated ability, where on turn 5, it could pull stuff into her lane, or you can wait till turn 6 and pull stuff to her lane. Spider-Man 2099. Again, we're going back to the move for a little bit. Imagine if Spider-Man's text got changed so that he activated and did this ability once. He just moved to a random location and destroyed a card. That's so good. And you can decide where it works. It's either going to happen on 5 or 6, of course, or maybe 7 if you go limbo. But now this ability only works one time no matter what. So, my hope is that in addition to the cards that we do see with the activate ability, some of the old cards are going to get the activate ability. Especially, I would love to see some Series 1s and 2s get it. Only because I have this weird feeling that they're going to put, play activates or use activates as a quest in the game, as a mission in the game. And if you don't put a couple of these in Series 1, Series 2, you're really stopping people from going through that track. Especially if they're weekly missions. So, that's my ramblings. None of this has been confirmed. I do want to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, remember, play for fun.